Hello, my name's Neil Finn, and I'm talking to you now because after lecturing in anthropology at the University of Edinburgh for 34 years without any serious adverse incidents, suddenly last April I found myself being denounced in an online mobbing organised by some student activists. So it was pretty nasty. I was described as a bigot, a transphobe, a racist, a misogynist, a rape apologist, and a disgusting old man. In short, it was a comprehensive character assassination accompanied by demands that I be sacked or re-educated, but not accompanied by any plausible evidence of any wrongdoing or unsavoury attitudes. These attacks came from complete strangers, and they were thankfully over within 2 or 3 days. But I'm curious as to what motivated the participants. I'm also curious as to why so many of my academic colleagues responded to these incidents with such a spectacular lack of common sense and an equally spectacular lack of moral courage. So my first question to you is, when you see a mobbing like this, what would you do if you saw a colleague who had suddenly been viciously attacked in the way that I've just described? What would you say about it? What would your response be? You'd at least, I hope, be a bit curious as to what provoked the attacks, wouldn't you? If you didn't know the person, you'd wonder how such a monster could have ended up as a lecturer, but you surely wouldn't want to join in the condemnations without pausing to find out if there was any truth to the allegations. And if you were a colleague who had known this person for several decades, unless you really didn't like that person, you'd want to leap to his defense, right? You'd want to say in public, hey, hang on a minute, this is my friend, he's not any of these things that you've described, he hasn't said a single thing that would justify you making any of those claims. You'd want to say something like that, and you want to say it loud and clear and in public. But if you were too scared to say so in public, you'd at least want to get in touch quietly to offer some gesture of moral support, wouldn't you? So what went wrong that prevented the overwhelming majority of my anthropology colleagues from responding in these ways? What went wrong initially that made these students denounce me in these ways? The story of the animosities against me are a little bit complex and elusive, so bear with me. I became a racist because in 2019 I publicly criticised the use of racial segregation and openly hostile anti-white disparagement within my own university campus in an event that was called Resisting Whiteness. In 2020, when the BLM-inspired student activists at Edinburgh persuaded our university to permanently remove David Hume's name from the David Hume Tower, I objected. I became a misogynist and a rape apologist because when there was a proposal in the UK House of Lords to solve the problem of gender-based violence by imposing a 6 p.m. curfew on all men, I pointed out that this was an impractical idea that really wasn't going to end well. I became a transphobe because I tweeted in support of J.K. Rowling and in support of the rector of my university when they were both attacked as transphobes for having defended women's sex-based rights. And I became a disgusting old man because, well, as you can see, the years have not been particularly kind to me. Now, trust me, I never expressed anything more controversial than the above views. I'm a reasonably open-minded person. All my colleagues know that I've devoted my entire career to the promotion of social justice, social progress, and happiness. I never learned anything useful about the student attackers because I wasn't allowed to engage in discussion with them, and the university seems not to have held any of them to account. But they did at least back off after a few days. It helped me a great deal at the time to hear some very kind and supportive messages from lots of other students, several of whom have been decent enough to also make public statements in my defence. Lots of them have met frequently with me in pubs and online, and they've developed a free speech champions organisation, a social movement that goes around the whole of the UK now as protection against ideological intolerance. So there is a silver lining to events such as this, and I'm pretty sure that most students can actually recognise an unfair mobbing when they see one. What I'm still finding really, really tricky to make sense of is why so few of my anthropology colleagues even bothered to send quiet messages of moral support. Why did literally none of them, not even my oldest friends in the department, have the moral courage to say anything public in my defence? That I find astonishing, extraordinary. My line managers and our human resource department were also utterly baffling in their response. They insisted I should be suspended from all student-facing duties pending a formal disciplinary investigation. Yet there was no charge. There was no charge. Not one single formal complaint had been filed against me, and for my part, I'd asked for immediate mediation with the students so that they could understand that their accusations were entirely false, but that opportunity was denied. So there would be no inquiry into the actions of any of the student attackers. Why? Well, because everybody is scared of further attacks from students, and that was made quite explicit. And when eventually the investigation, as it inevitably must, found that I had done nothing wrong, there was to be no public statement about this. My case had been covered by 30 news outlets, all of whom were favourably disposed towards me and highly critical of the university's handling of the case, but our press office insisted that any report would simply make matters worse, so there was to be no announcement that I had been exonerated. So there you have it. Fear of students is the unofficial explanation for so many mature academics having lost their moral compasses. Fear of mobs of denunciatory students is now so strong in the University of Edinburgh that adult lecturers and senior managers have become incapable of moral action. It seems that most of my academic colleagues are too scared even to have a basic conversation with students about the importance of considerate debate and academic freedom in universities. So from what I've learned over the past few months, lecturers who are victims of unfair denunciations have a very hard time staying in post. Social ostracism of victims in the workplace just seems to be the norm. Colleagues are desperate to avoid being associated with anyone who has a tarnished reputation, and repeat attacks by activists are common. This is unsurprising, of course. Once activists have tasted blood and they've seen that they can destroy somebody's career without being held to account, they undoubtedly feel greatly empowered. One of our students boasted online that her proudest achievement at the university was cancelling a crusty old man. So my colleagues are right to be scared, but they're wrong if they hope that these problems will simply disappear. We can't have decent universities if we don't face up to these threats to our cherished values and to the social qualities that make campus life enjoyable and constructive. So what am I going to do now? Well, I've made it clear that I won't teach at the University of Edinburgh again, unless there are more promising signs of strategies for dealing more effectively with political intolerance on campus. And so currently I'm working on a project of my own design, focusing on the highly relevant theme of shared curiosity on campus. I want this to be an appreciative inquiry. I want to learn in appreciative ways about how students and lecturers enrich and develop their own open-mindedness, their sense of wonder, their appreciation of viewpoint diversity. We need moral curiosity and open-minded discourse if we're to understand and respond to complex social challenges. So this project will focus mainly on inspiring examples of good practice, but I will of course not be pretending that campuses today don't have immense problems with intolerant and socially divisive activists who seem hell-bent on censoring open debate and stifling moral curiosity.